So Aparna, it's been a real pleasure to have you here for this festival.
Thank you. It was a pleasure for me too.
And that you visited our center, the Instituto Cervantes. As
yes.
you know, it's a very new center in New
It's lovely. It's beautiful.
And we are fighting to make ourselves a place here.
Yes.
In this wonderful city that, as you know, is full of culture nowadays.
Yes, I'm sure you will, judging by the beginning of this festival.
As you know, well, I am an admirer of your films. I think you're really making a difference in contemporary Indian cinema. And first question I would like to put you, what meant for you working with Satyajit Ray when you were so young at the beginning?
Well, as I keep saying, Satyajit Ray, first Igor and then Satyajit Ray, they are like something you inherit genetically. Just like you inherit your parents' blood pressure or their blood sugar levels. You can't help inheriting Igor and Ray if you have been in Bengal and if you're an educated person. It's very difficult to avoid it. So that was there. Culturally, he's a cultural inheritance for me. But apart from that, he was a family friend. So I knew him quite well. And then he later on, when I grew up and I started directing films, then he also, from 1976 onwards, he actually became a personal friend also, even though there was so much difference in our ages. I mean, he's my father's friend. He was my father's friend. But in 1976, he was the chairperson of the jury in IFI. And I was one of the jurors, and apparently he had recommended my name. And I said to him, but how will I be a member of the jury? I was very young then. And then this was 1970. Yeah, it was 1976. And then he said, but you've been watching films thanks to your father's Film Society movement since you were a child. So what better training can you have in cinema? Okay. And after that we became very good friends. So when I wrote 36 Jalgi Lane, I gave it to Ray to read.
Oh, right.
It was because he
so
strongly said you have to make it that I think I got the courage to.
I'm sure he gave you a good piece of advice.
Yes, he did.
And now tell me, you started the first half of your life as an actress. And I think you made a real impact in Bengali cinema at that time.
Yes. But that was mainstream Bengali cinema, and no, I'm not saying that it didn't give me anything, it did.
What did you learn from mainstream?
First of all, it gave me an identity in Òscar, because there are so many young filmmakers with good scripts, but nobody even gives them a hearing. So at least because I had become well known, at least a hearing was ensured. After that, if the producer didn't like the script, then he was free to reject it, but at least I could get a hearing. And there are many things that I learned about cinema. I actually was in front of the camera for longer than most assistant directors. So I had an exposure to the medium, both from the Bengali film industry within which I worked and from the Film Society world cinema that I used to watch. So my taste in cinema was formed by the world cinema that I watched, and my technical knowledge of cinema came from the Bengali film industry, because even though I was in front of the lens, I was very curious, and I used to always find out what was happening. And when there was a trolley movement, I used to notice, oh, why did they do a trolley here? Why didn't they start later? I was very curious about all that. So it helped me. It also taught me what not to do. What are the things to avoid.
So how one goes from actress into director? It's a big step, after all.
Very easy transition.
But
as I said, I was exposed to the
skills, it's completely different, no? Somehow.
No, it helped me, for instance, handling my actors was very easy, because I already knew what actors go through, all the fears and all the anxieties that they go through. And most directors often will explain the motivation, but supposing an actor is not able to execute it, then very few directors can actually help with the execution. So that helped, the fact that I was actually an actress who worked in front of the lens in front of the camera that helped me show actors, if necessary, what was wrong with their execution. Then, because I write my scripts myself, when I write my scripts.
This is not a question. Not all the directors write their scripts. This is also calls for a special approach to cinema. No? Although we know that very good directors sometimes they tend to do this. No? How important is the script for you in a movie?
It's the most important thing in the film because it's a backbone. It's the backbone of the film. So when I'm writing the script and I'm writing the dialogue, usually I'm saying the dialogue inside in my head, and so therefore I usually never have dialogue which actors will find difficult to deliver because
you know the difficulties.
Yeah, and also I know all the, for instance, all the business. You know, when it becomes very easy if you've been an actor to actually do the mise en scene. It helps. The acting experience helps the mise en scene. Because I can see that, you know, if an actor does this and then goes from here to there, does he or she have a motivation to move? You know, so I can work all that out. And script, I think, yes, it's very important because the script is as I said, like the backbone of a film. Because we are making narrative cinema, so there has to be a dramatic graph which will engage the audience.
Some tension has to be there.
Yes, yes.
I think that especially in your first films, you were examining the contemporary condition of Indian women, and you make a little of reflection on the lives. What are your feelings about this? Has changed much the condition of Indian women from the 80s to today?
Well, the first film was about this Anglo-Indian lady, a school teacher, who is not a representative Indian woman. Okay, because she's a marginalized person. She's on the fringes. But in 1985, I made Paroma, and that was about an Indian housewife. And the condition has changed. Yes, I think it has.
For good? Well, it's more complex than good and bad.
It's more complex than good and bad.
Not that easy.
But I think that I can give you a small example. Back in the 80s, in the early 80s, when child was asked, what does your father do and what does your mother do? Daddy goes to the office, mommy works in the kitchen. So now it's mommy goes to the office and daddy goes to the office. You know? Because now it's become mostly double income. Most families have to have double income, even to get by, you know, because of rising prices. And nowadays all modern young women work. So they have their identity. The way, or in Paroma, the woman's identity was actually in jeopardy. So that is not there any longer. The identity crisis is not there.
Is this reflected in your new films?
The new film, the latest film, is about an actress, so she doesn't have an identity problem.
People say that you have been very selective in directing films. I think there are 7 films in 28 years, perhaps.
It's not so much because I've been selected. It's very difficult to get funding.
Okay.
Because of the kind of films that I make, you know, people, it's not the typical mainstream stuff. So it's difficult to get funding. And I'm not very good at networking and soliciting funds. That's not really my forte.
Okay. So, I mean, you get better viewership here in India or in Europe or abroad?
Well, it depends on the film. You know, for 36 Chorandi Lane, I think, was seen both in India and in most international film festivals. In Paroma, my second film was really seen domestically much more. Because the problem of adultery and then emancipation, that was not so new. It was very new in the Bengali society, but it was not so new in the international scene. Sati, my third film, was...
So that was Madame Bovary of the New Cine?
Yes, except that in, unlike Madame Bovary in Paroma, she actually finds her identity and she grows as a person. It's not a negative thing that happens to her. It's something that starts off growth. Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But because, you know, adultery is something that once it's found out in a society like a closed society like we have in India, or we used to have in the 80s, you are absolutely ostracized. Within your own family, you become alone, and then Poroma attempts suicide. And you know what happens after and of course it's not successful, but what happens after a person attempts suicide is she goes to the doors of death, and then she is able to evaluate life again differently.
What drives you to make a movie, what you are looking for when you make a movie? Would you say?
Yeah, it can be different things. In Poroma, it was the image came first. The image of the woman with the shorn head, the adulteress, the archetypal adulteress. That image came first, and that helped me to build the story, you know. And also there was this girl who used to be a classmate of mine. She was a very, very bright student. She was good at everything she did in school, be it drama, be it sports, be it studies, be it elocution, whatever. And we went to her son's first birthday party. And we found that I was very surprised to find her switching roles, you know, because when an elderly relative came, she became the dutiful daughter-in-law, and she touched that relative's feet and welcomed her in. Then she turned to us and she became a schoolgirl again. And then another young girl came and touched her feet, so she immediately assumed the role of the elder sister or elder relative, and she blessed that girl. And I was thinking, but where is my friend? And which of these girls is she? Which of these roles, are these all roles that she's playing, or is this also
quality of the actor, no?
Yeah.
To change role like that.
Yes, that's right. And so this is what helped me make Poroma, because in Poroma, Poroma is defined by her social roles, and in the end, in the film, that she finds her own true identity. So that's what it was.
What is your favorite film? Viewers, of course. Your own films.
And it's not because it's the last, but I think it's The Japanese Wife.
Okay.
Because I find The Japanese Wife a film in which I've made the least number of compromises, and it's a film which the story is somebody else's, it's not mine. The script was written by me, and the story is absolutely lovely. It's almost bizarre, it's almost surreal in its innocence, you know. Two people, one from the interiors of the villages in Sundarban, a school teacher, and another is a Japanese girl who lives in a small town in Japan.
Imagine a most distant.
Yes, and they start writing letters to each other as pen pals, and they end up falling in love and they get married through letters. But in all the 17 years that they're married, they never get to meet. It's a very, very unusual story, and so this is what, the moment I read it, I knew I had to make it.
This reminds me of, some people say that the most important vehicle of love are words.
Most important?
Vehicle of love.
Is?
Wars, actually.
Wars?
Wars.
Wars? Really? Why is that?
No, I mean, Shabda. Wars.
Shopno. I didn't get that, I'm sorry.
No. I think that the most important thing in love, actually, the spoken word.
Yeah.
More than physical.
Oh, our words. Okay. Yeah, most important. Yeah, well, yes. And also,
that corroborates it.
Yeah, distance is not a factor. The physicality, physical intimacy is not a factor. I mean, longing is there. Maybe somebody said once it's a metaphor of the longing for the East to meet the East.
Okay, that's very nice. That's very nice.
Yes, nice to put. But it just doesn't happen. The hankering is there.
But the relation takes place anyway.
But except that it's never consummated.
I would like to ask you, now we have this imaging issue, this festival,
yes.
and I think this is very important. Also to make Asian cinema known to
absolutely.
Indian audiences.
Absolutely. I think NETPAC has been doing wonderful work in that direction. So,
how do you see the position of Indian cinema inside this wider context of Asian cinema?
See, the thing is that India is the largest producer of films today. There is, when you say Indian cinema, unfortunately most people think of Bollywood. So, and Bollywood has become very big today.
Let me tell one thing. I remember, in Spain, in the city of Spain, Bollywood festival was Orlando's. And these mostly were films by strategic film. So you have to enlarge the concept of Bollywood that people have outside, no?
Yeah,
I mean, that was amazing.
Yeah.
We know that.
I went to Krakow the other day. They even had a Bollywood party, where they was having mainstream Hindi film songs. And people were dancing.
So what is the relation between Bollywood and our cinema in India?
Bollywood has swallowed up everything. Bollywood has swallowed up everything else. But fortunately, in Bollywood now, different kinds of subjects are also being attempted. So actually, the dividing line between art cinema and mainstream cinema is kind of popular cinema is becoming more and more fuzzy. So that which is a good thing because you have different, wide variety of subjects now.
So will you ever make a Bollywood film?
If I will get a funding, then maybe I will. But I will never be able to make that kind of, formula kind of Bollywood films. I will have to make my own kind of film.
Let's get back to the question, which was what is the position of Indian cinema in the larger context of Asian cinema?
Yeah, well, it's huge because Bollywood is huge. That's why it's huge. Anything that makes so much money becomes of interest to people because obviously it's a great revenue earner, it employs a lot of people and it brings in revenue. So slowly what is happening is that Indian cinema is being confused with mainstream Hindi cinema, which is known as Bollywood. And nobody can compete with Bollywood, just like nobody can used to be able to compete with Hollywood. But Bollywood is also coming into its own. So I think as far as Asian cinema is concerned, what is extremely popular in India among film buffs is Iranian cinema from Iran and also some Chinese and Japanese films, definitely.
And one last question.
Yes.
What do you know about the Spanish cinema? And if you can mention a few.
Yeah. Well, I don't know a great deal. I mean, I'm not an expert on Spanish cinema at all, but I have been very, very, very admiring of, for instance, Carlos Saura's work. And when I was studying English literature, Blood Wedding was a very favorite play of mine. And when I saw Blood Wedding, I didn't think anybody could do it like that, like Saura's had done, or Carmen.
Have you seen Carmen?
Yes, it's beautiful. I mean, and lately I saw another Carlos Saura's film, which I have forgotten the name of. It's on dance. It's just stunning. I think it's called, what is it called? It's that dance, that Spanish dance that you have.
But he did that on fados.
Flamenco.
Of course. Carmen is on flamenco.
Yeah, but I think he made a film also called Flamenco, no?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. But it was a film on dance, and Carlos Saura's.
He's making a series of film on music. He's on fados, which is Portuguese music.
Okay.
And then this wonderful movie, which is almost, has no script. It's only music called Iberia.
Okay,
with unbending, it's really a visual delight,
Yeah, but even this, this was a visual delight because his camera is like a dancer. It just moves in and weaves in and out among the dancers, and the kind of backdrops that he uses for the dance, just using light. I mean, it's quite amazing. You could just sit and just seep in all that beautiful visual. It's so wonderful. And then, of course,
your movies are very beautiful on the visual side. Really. They create a special atmosphere. Sometimes some melancholy is there, sadness.
Where?
In your movies.
Okay, when you see the Japanese wife, I think the visuals are really nice.
Thanks very much, Aparna. It's such a pleasure.
It's a pleasure.